Assalamualaikum. My name is Sharmi. So I'm going to start with introductions. Basically, tourism is one of Malaysia's key economic sector, contributing significantly to national GDP and supporting economic growth through visitor spending and employment opportunities. However, geopolitical conflict and global crisis have increasingly affected the tourism industry by disrupting travel pattern, reducing tourist confidence, and increasing transportation costs. Recent tension in West Asia, including conflict involving Iran and the closure of key trade routes, have led to travel cancellations, flight disruptions, and rising fuel prices, creating challenges for Malaysian tourism recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic. Constantly, it's highlighting the vulnerability of Malaysia tourism sector to external event that can rapidly influence international mobility, tourism demand, and overall economic stability. Hence, in today's global landscape, ongoing conflict around the world can be regarded as geopolitical issue that bring significant disadvantage to Malaysia, particularly in its tourism industry. Moreover, travel pattern and economic stability can be swiftly altered by geopolitical crises such as war and territory dispute. Due to its popularity as a travel destination in Southeast Asia, Malaysia tourism sector is especially susceptible to such swift, particularly when international mobility and confidence are disrupted by regional conflict, like those in the South China Sea or global crisis like the Russian-Ukraine war.
The primary issue identified in our investigation is the sudden contraction of inbound tourism demand following the escalation of 2026 Middle East conflict. While the physical conflict is geographically removed from Southeast Asia, the highly globalized nature of the tourism industry creates a phenomenon known as a fear contagion, causing instability in one region to ripple instantly across global travel networks. The immediate macroeconomic damage is striking, as reported by the Malaysia Inbound Tourism Association or MITA. Malaysian tour agency recorded a staggering 2,800 booking cancellations within the very first week of the conflict. From an economic standpoint, this sudden decline represents a critical loss of foreign currency inflow, directly straining Malaysia's service account within the balance of payments. Because the tourism sector historically incurs 15.9% of our national GDP, this cancellation triggers destructive negative multiplier effect. The sudden surplus of supply in hotel rooms and tour slots forced local hospitality businesses to aggressively slash price. This rapidly decreased the profit margin and operational liquidity of tourism-dependent small and medium enterprise or SME. Compounding this problem is a structural shift in consumer psychology, which we analyze through the wait-and-see economic behavior model. Tourism is a highly discretionary service with high sentiment elasticity when global geopolitical risk escalates. Consumers immediately allocate resources, prioritizing physical safety and liquid capital over luxury consumptions. Consequently, international travelers enter a committed inquiry phase, and indefinitely postponing advance booking. This complete lack of forward booking data creates a critical liquidity freeze for travel agency operating on thin margin. More severely, it paralyzed the revenue forecasting capabilities of both government and the private sector, directly jeopardizing the macroeconomy and marketing milestones established for the Visit Malaysia 2026 campaigns. Beyond behavioral shift, our study investigates a critical structural vulnerability within Malaysia tourism infrastructure, specifically our heavy reliance on long-haul aviation connectivity and Middle Eastern transit hub. Our tourism economy is deeply dependent on premium long-haul carriers such as Emirates, Qatar Airways, and also Etihad to bridge high-spending visitors from Europe and North America to Malaysia. As highlighted by TA research, the geopolitical escalation has forced the closure of critical airspace, requiring airlines to reroute flights through longer, less efficient alternative corridors. This logistical bottleneck generates an immediate supply-side shock, manifesting as a sharp spike in international ticket price driven by increased jet fuel consumption and steep war with insurance surcharges. According to industry data from the Star Business, this compounding flight operational costs severely diminish the overall utility of the travel experience due to the extended flight durations. This structural bottleneck leaves Malaysia at a severe competitive disadvantage, rendering it economically unavailable compared to regional competitors who benefit from direct, unaffected flight corridor. Ultimately, if left unmitigated, this prolonged logistical bottleneck threatens to primarily divert high-value international traffic away from our market. undermining the long-term economic sustainability of the national aviation service area sector. Thank you. I will now hand the presentation over to the next speaker to discuss the economic implication of this challenge.
Now let's move on to our implications on the positive side. Tourism is not just about holidays, it's about how a country adapts when the world changes. Even with global conflicts, Malaysia has managed to turn challenges into opportunities. In this presentation, I will share 3 positive implications that show how Malaysia's tourism industry stays strong and keeps growing. The first positive implication is the diversion of tourists to Malaysia. When the Middle East conflict disrupted major aviation hubs like Dubai and Doha, many travelers started looking for safer routes. This situation gave Malaysia a chance to attract those diverted tourists. According to the Malaysian Inbound Tourism Association, there were thousands of cancellations in the first week of the conflict, but soon after, Kuala Lumpur International Airport became a preferred alternative hub. Official data from Travel and Tour World shows that Malaysia recorded 42.2 million international visitors in 2025, which is an 11.2% increase from 2024 and even higher than pre-pandemic levels. This proves that Malaysia's reputation as a safe and culturally rich destination helped it stand out globally. Tourists who avoided the Middle East often extended their stay in Malaysia, enjoying our diverse attractions and hospitality. In short, Malaysia successfully repositioned itself as a reliable and welcoming destination. The second implication is Malaysia's strong domestic and regional tourism, which keeps the industry stable even when international travel slows down. While global tourists were uncertain, Malaysians and visitors from nearby ASEAN countries continue to travel locally. The New Straits Times reported that domestic tourism spending reached 121.3 billion in 2025, with 290.1 million local trips recorded. Festivals like Keamatan in Sabah and Gawai Daya in Sarawak attracted thousands of local visitors, helping small businesses and hotels to stay active. Moreover, researchers Nazir, Kumar, Sanggaran, Ali and Valerie also found that Malaysia's tourism resilience comes from regional cooperation and cultural events that keep demand steady. This shows that domestic and regional tourism act as a safety net, protecting the economy and supporting the Visit Malaysia 2026 campaign. The third implication is Malaysia's use of tourism diplomacy to strengthen international relations. Even though flight routes became longer and more expensive, Malaysia turned this challenge into an opportunity by promoting itself through cultural exchanges and halal-friendly branding. Tourism Malaysia's roadmap for Visit Malaysia 2026 focuses on partnerships with China, India and Gulf nations, making Malaysia more visible and appealing to international travelers. UNESCO's recognition of Lenggong Valley as a global geopark also boosts Malaysia's image, showing that we value heritage and sustainability. The tourism review article supports this, explaining that while the Middle East conflict caused billions in losses worldwide, countries that actively promote themselves through a diplomacy recover faster. Malaysia's cultural diplomacy helps attract diverted tourists and builds trust with other nations. In simple words, Malaysia uses tourism as a bridge to connect with the world. In short, Malaysia's tourism industry has shown strong adaptability. Despite global conflicts, we turn challenges into opportunities, which attracting diverted tourists, boosting local travel, and building international ties. These positive impacts prove the sector is resilient and ready to grow stronger. Now let's take a look at 3 key negative implications: residential disruption, hotel industry decline, and tax revenue loss. Firstly, the most immediate negative implication is residential disruption. During global conflicts, hotels and airports may be repurposed for humanitarian or emergency use. For example, hotels might house displaced people, while airports prioritize aid flights instead of leisure travel. Although this is necessary, it disrupts local communities and reduces Malaysia's appeal as a holiday destination. The International Committee of the Red Cross 2020 explains that tourism services often overlap with humanitarian needs, which undermines stability. Nazir 2025 also highlight that ASEAN communities often feel sidelined when tourism infrastructure is redirected. For instance,
if Kuala Lumpur hotels are converted into shelters, both locals and tourists lose confidence in Malaysia as a comfortable destination. Moving on to another major negative implication is the decline of the hotel industry. Hotels are highly vulnerable to cancellations and reduced bookings during times of fear and uncertainty. Empty rooms mean less income, workers risk losing jobs, and related businesses such as restaurants and shops also suffer. The World Travel and Tourism Council 2021 reports that hotels and service industries are among the first to feel the economic impact in conflict zones. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, many hotels in Malaysia struggled to survive, with some shutting down permanently. Moreover, the World Economic Forum 2021 adds that accommodation capacity dropped sharply during crisis, with many hotels unable to recover to pre-pandemic levels. Lastly, we must consider tax revenue loss. Tourism is a major source of tax income for Malaysia. When fewer tourists visit, the government collects less, limiting its ability to fund development projects and maintain public services such as education and transport. Over time, this slows economic growth and makes recovery more difficult. The International Monetary Fund 2019 warns that tourism-dependent states face significant disruption during conflicts as reduced arrivals weaken government budgets. Furthermore, the ResearchGate study 2024 explains that tourism taxes are dynamic. When arrivals drop, governments lose not only immediate revenue but also long-term growth prospects. For Malaysia, this could mean reduced funding for Visit Malaysia 2036 campaigns or slower progress in upgrading airports and highways. In conclusion, Malaysia's tourism industry faces vulnerabilities during global conflicts. Residential disruption, hotel decline, and tax revenue loss show how fragile the sector can be. Therefore, by understanding these challenges, we can eventually prepare better strategies for the future of Malaysia's tourism industry.
Now, I will explain the suggestions and recommendations to reduce the negative impact on Malaysia's tourism industry. First, market diversifications and targeted tourism campaigns. Malaysia should not depend too much on traditional tourism markets such as Europe, the Middle East, and North America. Instead, Malaysia should focus more on regional and emerging markets like Asian countries, China, India, Vietnam, and South Korea. In addition, Malaysia can attract more visitors by promoting different tourism products such as halal tourism, ecotourism, medical tourism, and cultural tourism. Tourism Malaysia should also strengthen digital marketing through social media, influencers, and the Visit Malaysia campaign. This will help increase tourist arrivals and make the tourism industries more resilient during global crises. Second, strengthening domestic tourism as a stability buffer. Domestic tourism should be treated as a long-term strategy and not only during crises. So campaign such as Cuti Cuti Malaysia affordable travel package and tax incentive can encourage Malaysians to travel within the country. This is important because local tourists can continue supporting hotel, transportation service, and tourism businesses when international arrivals decline. As a result, tourism revenue and employment opportunities can be maintained. The third recommendation is enhancing crisis communications and destinations confidence. During global or geopolitical crisis, misinformation can spread quickly and discourage people from traveling. Therefore, Tourism Malaysia should establish a centralized crisis communication system. This system can provide a real-time safety update, travel advisories, and accurate information to tourists. By reducing misinformation and improving public trust, Malaysia can strengthen destinations' confidence and reduce booking cancellations. The fourth recommendation is aviation's and airline partnership resilience strategy. Malaysia should expand direct flights routes to key regions such as East Asia, South Asia, and Europe. This helps reduce dependence on a single transit hub and minimize disruption caused by geopolitical issues and airspace restrictions. Malaysia can also strengthen partnership with airlines by offering routes, incentive, and support. These efforts will improve connectivity and attract more tourists and enhance the resilience of Malaysia's tourism industry in the future. In conclusion, these recommendations can help Malaysia build a more sustainable, competitive, and resilient tourism sector that is better prepared for future challenges.
So we will continue for our last section, which is conclusion. In conclusion, geopolitical conflicts pose significant challenges to Malaysia tourism industry by affecting tourist arrival, travel confidence, and aviation connectivity, leading to economic losses and disruption across related sector. However, Malaysia can strengthen its tourism resilience through domestic and regional tourism, tourism diplomacy, market diversifications, improved crisis communication, stronger airline partnership, and digital innovations. Therefore, by adopting proactive strategy and fostering collaborations among government agency, tourism organization, airlines, and private sector stakeholder, Malaysia can better manage future uncertainties while ensuring the long-term growth, sustainability, and competitiveness of its tourism industry. Thank you. That's all from us.